Hi everybody, it's Janelle from Pieces to Treasure, and I'm just going to run you through a quick tutorial on how to do mitred corners. So mitred corners, if we look at this cushion, are seams that are joined at 45 degrees on each corner. It can be a pillow or a table runner or a quilt, but it's particularly important to do mitred corners when you're using striped fabric in your borders, because you can make your stripes match up beautifully like on this pillow rather than have them butt jointed. So this pillow here has the stripes running lengthwise on the borders. So we will talk about how to do that, but I'm also going to talk about how to do stripes running the short way on your borders and make the stripes match up on your mitred corner like that. So let's get started. Okay, here we have a pillow and we've attached borders to it that have our stripes running lengthwise, and we're going to learn to do a mitred corner. Now, firstly, we've sewn our borders on, and I've used a light thread here so you can see the stitching. Sewn them on, and we've stopped 1/4 inch from the corner of the center of the pillow. So you can see that's 1/4 inch short there. And we do that on every corner. So our borders just meet up at the edge there like that. They don't over sew one another, they just meet up at the edge and do a little back stitch there. Now, to do the mitred corners, lay your quilt or pillow on your ironing board. You'll see why I use the ironing board in a minute. With the right side facing up. Have one border running across and down the length of your ironing board like that, and the adjacent border running up perpendicular to it at 90 degrees. Now we're going to take this border and turn it around so our sides match one another. Just watch me do this. I'm folding it so the right sides match, and I'm lining up bottom edge and the top edge. So this fold is at 45 degrees, and see how my stripe matches up. So we've got the right sides of the fabric together. I've folded around and matched the edges. I'm going to do it again for you. Lay your quilt out, one horizontal border, one vertical. Tuck this one under so they're right sides together, and fold it so this edge and this edge meet, and your fold from the corner will be at 45 degrees, and you will have a beautiful mitre. We then press it like that. You can give it a little shot of steam because it helps to set it. Now this is where it's really useful to do this on the ironing board. To hold this in place, I use my pins and I just poke into the padding on your ironing board like that, and it holds it in position. So now I fold this back, and that crease that I ironed is my stitching line. So I can pick up and pin on that crease all the way to the point where my side seams matched, like that. I can take out those pins that were holding it, and I'm going to stitch on my machine in like that and do a little back stitch at the corner, and that would be my mitred corner done perfectly. Once I've done the stitching, you can cut that extra fabric off and iron that seam open. So all you have to do then is repeat that procedure for the other 3 corners of your quilt or pillow. Okay, so I've shown you how to do a mitred corner when your stripes are running lengthways. Now it's important when you cut your borders with stripes running this way that you make sure the stripe is positioned in the same place on each strip of fabric, so it's in the center. So you've measured the same distance on every strip, so when you do fold your mitre around, it matches. Now there is a tutorial that you can access on my blog on how to cut your fabric with the stripe in the center, so that's worth having a look at. So that's very important for that kind of mitre. Now we're going to look at one where our stripes are running the other way. So they're running along the short direction of the border. Now, whenever you cut strips to make a mitred border, you have to measure the width of your quilt, and then you need to add on the width of your border twice, because when you do a mitre, the fabric actually continues right to the outside edge. So I measure my quilt, add on the width of my border, which in this case is 5 inches. So say this was 20 inches, plus 5, which is 10. So I'm up to 30 inches. And then I add a little bit extra, so when I turn the corner around, it's easy for me to do it. Now, to attach these borders, this only works if your quilt or pillow is square. If you want your shortway stripes to match up, it will only work if your centre quilt is square, because otherwise the stripe pattern repeat will be different down each side and they won't meet up at the corners. So to make sure that we get our stripes in the same place, we have to work out where the centre is on our quilt and also our stripes. So the first thing to do is to fold your quilt in half and mark it with a pin. So there's my centre point of my quilt, marked with a pin. Now I need to find the centre of my border. So I'm just going to fold that in half, but I need to make sure when I fold it that my stripes match up. See how the stripes match up there? So I'm finding the centre, about the centre of your border, because you've cut it extra long, and the centre of a stripe. And so there's the centre of my stripe. Mark it with a pin, and then you're going to pin it onto your quilt. So we're going to mark those 2 spots. Now it's important that you do that for every side. So we found the centre of a white stripe. So for every side on this quilt, we have to find the centre of a white stripe. And I'll show you why. If you sew them on and you've marked the centre of the same stripe and matched it to the centre of your quilt sides, when you go to line up to do your mitre, your stripes will match. You will be in the same striped pattern when you reach the corners. If I had not positioned my borders in the same place on each side of my quilt, my stripes will not match up. Now, if your quilt is a rectangle, this technique won't work because your pattern repeat for the long side will be different to the pattern repeat for the stripe at the top. So let's walk through this one. We've marked the centre of a centre stripe on our border and attached that to the centre of one side, and we've repeated that procedure for all 4 sides. Then we're going to do the same as we did for the previous borders. Lay them on the ironing board, have one going down the length, one going perpendicular, fold it around right sides together and match our 2 edges, top and bottom edge. Now the fact that we can see quite easily when we do this, you can manipulate that to make your stripes meet well, and once again press it in place and you get that perfect join. We're going to follow exactly the same procedure as we did before. Hold it in position on the ironing board so it doesn't move, and then flip it over and pin on that fold that you ironed in place, like that. And there is your mitred corner ready to stitch on the sewing machine. So this works for quilts, pillows that are square, And that is how you get your stripes to pattern match at the corner for a mitered corner. Thanks very much for watching, and happy sewing.